What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another entry into Battle on a Budget. This time featuring actually some new cards from Steam Siege. I've had a lot of requests for this deck, so I wanted to try to put something together with it, and see if we can make something for newer players or players on a budget who don't have access to things like Shaman and such. And so this time I'm actually going to switch things up. Typically, I've only done deck profiles for these Battle on a Budget decks, but a lot of people were also requesting to see actual games with them too. So I actually am going to start doing record matches for all of these decks as well. So uh, I appreciate you guys giving me your feedback. So if there's ever anything you guys want to see out of our videos, feel free to, let us know below in the comments because we might actually listen. So today, like I said, we're taking a look at Infernape. It's a new Stage 2 card that Steam Siege is giving us. So let's see what Infernape is all about. Okay, so Infernape, 130 hit points, water weak, 1 retreat cost, fine stats as far as I can see, is weak to Greninja. That's the only downside to that weakness, but 1 retreat cost is nice, and 130 hit points is okay for a Stage 2. But it has 2 attacks here. The first one we're going to look at is Flare Blitz for 2 fire. It does 120 and discard all fire attached to this Pokemon. So this is pretty nice because you can one-shot Shamans and also two-shot pretty much every Mega and Fighting Fury belted EX in the game. So you have an even prize trade. You have to two-shot them. A lot of times they will one-shot or sometimes even have to two-shot you. So because we're a non-EX deck, we have a decent prize exchange. Then the other attack here is going to be Flare Up for 2 fire. It does a crazy 200 damage, and if you have fewer than 10 fire energy in your discard, you can't do it. Or actually, you can do it. The attack does nothing though. But you shuffle 10 of those fire energies from your discard back into your deck. So it's kind of an insane requirement to do this attack, and so we do run a ton of energy in this deck. This probably has more energy than any deck I've built since probably I had a starter deck. So we are definitely going to play a lot of energy to potentially be able to use that. Maybe it's like a late game closer to take like a big knockout against an EX or something. So that's Infernape. The basic Chimchar and Monferno aren't really very relevant. Their attacks are whatever. For the rest of the Pokemon, we're going to play one Klefki. So this is another new card from Steam Siege. It has the ability Wonderlock. And if Klefki is on your bench, you may discard all cards attached to him and attach it to one of your Pokemon as a tool card. And when you do that, you prevent any damage done to this Pokemon by Mega Pokemon. So after the rotation, since this is a post-rotation deck, Megas do look to be pretty popular. Mega Rayquaza and Mega Mewtwo I've talked about before are pretty hype decks for the post-rotation format. Sceptiles also I've seen had some talk about it. I think Primal Groudon actually has a chance to maybe make a resurgence. So Mega Pokemon definitely do seem like they might be popular. And Mega Rayquaza in particular is such a fast deck that it can really pose a problem for Infernapes, especially Mega Mewtwo as well, because Mega Mewtwo can also just damage change the the damage that you do. So I don't think Klefki actually prevents against damage change, but it'll prevent against things like, man, what's the name of Mewtwo's attack? I'm already forgetting it. Well, Mega Mewtwo's normal attack, it can prevent against that. Basically any damage that Megas do to you. So it seems like a decent inclusion, and we can reuse it with Super Rod as well. Then the other Pokemon we're going to be playing is one copy of the Stardust Jirachi. So it has the attack Stardust for a colorless, you do 10 damage, discard a special energy on your opponent's active, and if you do, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So this is nice if our opponent is playing one of these Mega decks like Mega Mewtwo or Mega Rayquaza that typically play double colorless energies, because we can get rid of it with Stardust and buy ourselves a turn or two to set up a little bit more. We do have Pokemon Ranger in the format now, which does kind of mitigate some of the usefulness of Jirachi, since Pokemon Ranger can clear the effects of Stardust. But nevertheless, there's going to be some turns when you can buy yourselves a few extra turns to stay in the game. So that's why we're just playing one of this, just because stage 2 decks are a little bit slower and they typically don't attack on the first turn or two of the game. Okay, so moving on to the supporter cards, I like to start with those first. 2 Professor Sycamore, discard your hand, draw 7. So we want to get Fire Energy in the discard, so we definitely want to play Sycamore in this list. We're only playing 2 just because this is a stage 2 deck, so we might end up discarding our Infernapes and Rare Candies if we play a heavier count of this. And we also play Scorched Earth and Ultra Ball to help us discard additional Fire Energy. So I haven't yet felt like a need for more copies of Sycamore. This has been pretty fine as far as I can tell. We're also playing 3 copies of N. Each player shuffles their hand into his or her deck, then draws equal to the amount of prizes they have left. So in the early turns, it gives us a nice form of shuffle draw. That way we don't have to get rid of those important pieces like Rare Candy and Infernapes. And in the late game, we can use it to, disrupt our opponent a little bit too. Playing 1 Teammates. So you can only play this card if one of your Pokemon was knocked out on your opponent's last turn. So search your deck for up to 2 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. This is really nice because everything is a non-EX in this deck. No Shamans, no Volcanion EXs, no Flareon, nothing like that. So our opponent is definitely going to have to take 6 prizes against us. So that'll give us 5 potential turns to use this Teammates card. So I definitely like this in non-EX decks. So Infernape seemed like a good fit for it. Playing 1 Lysander, switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with one of their active Pokemon. Honestly, I would like to run a second copy of this, but because of all of the energy that we have to run in this deck to potentially use Infernape's second attack, some cuts did have to be made, and unfortunately Lysander was one of them. So still definitely a great card because we are going to have to two-shot things, so we will need to bring up their bench Pokemon at some point. Because they will probably retreat to try to save it from being knocked out. So, playing 1 Lysander, 1 Hex Maniac. In case we go against Vileplume, we will need this card because we can't play Rare Candy under Item Lock. And also, Greninja is a pretty terrible matchup for this deck, I won't lie. So, Hex Maniac is one of the few cards that will actually help us in the Greninja matchup. Okay, we have 4 versus Seeker, just to reuse all those supporter cards as much as possible. 4 Ultra Ball, so discard 2 cards from your hand, search your deck for any Pokemon card. So ideally we want to discard maybe 2 Fire Energy and search your deck for maybe like, a Chimchar or an Infernape or something like that. So just another card we want to max out to help get Fire Energy in the discard. So 4 Trainer's Mail, just a consistency booster card. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, get a trainer card, and put it into your hand. So we play a ton of trainer cards, so it's definitely good to max this guy out if you have the space. 1 Super Rod, so shuffle any 3 combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard back into your deck. So like I was saying, if we do have to discard maybe some Infernapes early on, or a couple get knocked out, we can always get them back into our deck with Super Rod at some point. Okay, 4 Rare Candy. So we are playing a stage 2 deck and we don't have anything like Forest of Giant Plants or anything like that. So we do have to go the traditional Rare Candy route, which, we're okay with. We didn't pick the name for the channel if we didn't like the card. So always fun to play Rare Candy in a deck. 2 Max Elixir. So Infernape does have a pretty manageable attack cost, just 2 energy, but in order to keep streaming Infernapes for the course of the game, we are probably going to have to max Elixir to get down an additional attachment for the turn at some point. I almost would like to up this to maybe 3 max Elixirs, but 2 has been okay so far. I've been able to, like I said, kind of stay in the game a little bit because normally if you just attach on your first turn, and then attach on your second turn and use Infernape's attack, you don't have any energy to work with for the following turn. So you definitely do need to get additional attachments some way in this deck. Okay, we're also playing 2 Level Ball. Infernape is the only Pokemon that isn't Level Ball searchable, so this will let us search our deck for any other card that we want. So that's why we're playing 2 of it. And rounding out the trainer cards, we're playing 4 Scorched Earth. So once during each player's turn, they may discard a fire or a fighting energy from their hand, and if they do, you get to draw 2 cards. So that's kind of nice because it gives us some extra draw power without having to use something like Shaman. We already run so few basics in this deck. I think playing Shaman would be a liability, if anything, just because you might start with it more often than you would like. So, uh, so I definitely like Scorched Earth in place of something like that. Just helps give us a little bit extra draw power and helps get those fire energies in the discard. Okay, and then for the energy cards, we are running a crazy 13 basic fire energy. Like I said, I don't remember the last deck I played that ran this many basic energy, so this is a little unusual for me, but we need enough energies to where we can get 10 into the discard and also account for maybe having a couple in play or having a few prize, because if we only play maybe 10 or 12 energy total, that really doesn't give us much room as far as um, prizing fire energies or having some in play that might prevent us from using Infernape's second attack. So we definitely do need a surplus of fire energy in this deck. And then we are also going to be playing 2 burning energy. So this card's kind of nice because, like I said, um, typically you would discard Infernape's energies that are attached to him, but with burning energy, you don't have to discard the energy. So if you have maybe just like 1 burning energy and a regular fire, you can discard the 1 fire and attach another fire the next turn and keep on attacking. So we don't want to play too many of these just because we do need those basic fire energies in the discard, but 2 is definitely handy in certain situations. So yeah, guys, that is the Infernape deck we are trying out. And like I said, we are going to start doing actual recorded matches with these as well. So I'm just going to move over to the battle video that we have and show you what this deck looks like in action, okay? All right, guys, it looks like we found ourselves a match here, and our opponent is calling the coin flip. So it looks like we won the coin flip, which is always nice. And he does have a Xerneas set of sleeves, deck box, and a fairy coin. So that makes me think maybe we're going against Xerneas Break here, or some sort of fairy deck, if I had to guess. Alright, so here we have Chimchar and Jirachi. Probably best to start Chimchar just because Jirachi you may not even need, so seems fine to me. So here, it's actually going to be the Rainbow Force Xerneas. We actually did a deck profile on that pretty recently too, so if you haven't seen that, definitely check out that as well. So here we're getting down another Chimchar. Grab a Scorched Earth off the Trainer's Mail, which seems fine, just to thin the deck out a little bit more. And here, it looks like I'm debating if I want to attach the Chimchar, or, got some decisions to make here. I think maybe, I think I'm contemplating hanging on to it just because we don't have a supporter actually, and we might want to hang on to it. That way we can use our Scorched Earth to discard it and draw 2 cards with it on the next turn. So that probably seems like the safer play here, which is fine. Rainbow Road typically I think doesn't attack on the first turn anyway, so we're probably safe. So for you guys who aren't familiar with the Xerneas that has the Rainbow Force attack, it does 10 plus 30 more for every different type of Pokemon on their bench. So it can potentially one-shot us. And here we're going to attach a fire to the bench Pokemon, and we're going to see an N. Because more than likely he's going to have a DCE for next turn to knock out our active Chimchar, so no point in attaching to it. And here we have Max Elixir. We can play it, or we can save it. And I think I like to save it, just because if we do Max Elixir onto the Chimchar, we don't want to have a Lysander target. So by not attaching to it, even if he knocks out our active, we can always attach to Jirachi for turn, promote it, and Max Elixir onto the bench Chimchar to get that second energy in case we evolve into Infernape. So just trying to give ourselves some more options here. We don't want to get too aggressive. So our opponent does have Octillery out. They actually have a bunch of Vulpix, which is really interesting. So he more than likely plays the Ninetales that has the Barrier Shrine ability that locks the Stadium cards. So that could be problematic if he gets a quick Ninetales out. And here he does actually get it off the level ball, so he is threatening to use it for next turn. So we have a couple options here. Let's Max Elixir first. So we'll get an energy, put it onto our Chimchar. Discard the Fire Energy off Scorched Earth. And here we're probably going to end, if I had to guess. I mean, we can Hex, but that really doesn't do us too much good. So we're just going to end. And here, I think we may have misplayed. I think I probably should have attached that energy to Jirachi or the other Chimchar, just because we're pretty sure this one is going to get knocked out on our opponent's next turn. Oh, I think I know why. If we hit the rare candy and Infernape, we could have retreated into our benched one. So that was why we attached there. Unfortunately, we do whiff getting out the Infernape or even a Monferno, which kind of sucks, but it happens sometimes. So here we're just going to see a scratch for 10 damage, kind of irrelevant just because Xerneas has 120 hit points. Okay, it didn't look like our opponent has anything too crazy prized. So he has a Sycamore, hits the DCE. He's got to be happy to see that. Even though he takes a knockout, we can always use Stardust with our Jirachi to get rid of that DCE and build up our board a little bit longer. So here, I guess I'm just checking what we've used so far, not too much. So we can promote Chimchar. I guess that's okay with me. If we don't hit the Infernape, we can always just retreat and still attack with that Jirachi. So I'll probably evolve a bench Chimchar. That way we can, still give ourselves the option of the Infernape. And unfortunately, we have an Infernape and a Super Rod that we're going to have to discard with Sycamore. So maybe we should have just Sycamored and not done the Scorched Earth immediately. It's hard to say. Hindsight is 2020. But here we do get the rare candy and the Infernape, which is really nice. And we can Max Elixir as well if we want to. Maybe get an energy on another Chimchar, or even Jirachi, that'd be fine too. And we somehow whiff a Max Elixir in a deck that runs like 12 or 13 basic energy. That's crazy. We might actually opt to hold on to it, I don't know, just because we don't have a supporter for next turn. But I guess it's okay. I think it was kind of a risky play. I think we probably should just save the energy attachment. But and here he does bump our Skyfield, or I'm sorry, he bumps our Scorched Earth with his Skyfield. It's Acrobatic. Hopefully he doesn't hit Ninetales, just because we are not in a good shape when it comes to our hand. If we can draw a Scorched Earth and maybe a Fire or something, that would help us get out of this situation. So it is unfortunate he has bumped our Stadium. Okay, and it looks like, if I had to guess, he'll get out Ninetales. Oh, okay, he's getting a Raichu. That seems fine as well. Yeah, if he gets a Float Stone and another couple Pokemon down, he will be able to knock out this Infernape with Raichu. So here he has a Shaman. So he just needs, I believe, one more on the bench. Because it's like 20 for each bench Pokemon. Yeah. Okay, so he does get Durant. But he did attach to the Zoroark, so it looks like he's not going for Raichu. He's just probably going to Mind Jack us for, what is that, like 90, I think? I can't even math right now. Or I think it's 100. Yeah, it's 100. So that's cool. That does buy us an extra turn. If we hit a Fire Energy, that'd be great. Unfortunately, we don't have too much to work with. We're probably going to have to let this Infernape actually bite the dust. Unfortunately, we don't play Shaman in this list. This is an instance where it would definitely help out. But here we'll just grab ourselves another Infernape just to get ready for when this active one goes down. But even though this is probably going to get knocked out and we don't have much going on, we can Stardust this Zoroark to buy ourselves another turn. So here we can promote that Jirachi, and hopefully we can top deck another supporter or something. Just another Infernape. Not what we want to see. But luckily, like I said, we can Stardust, discard that double colorless energy, and that will prevent Jirachi from being hit, unless our opponent plays something like a Pokemon Ranger. Okay, he's definitely got a nice bench going there. We do have fire energy, but it's kind of useless right this second. But luckily, we can Lysander up this Xerneas and discard another DCE off of it. So we're definitely buying ourselves as much time as possible to get set up here. And actually, if we can run him at a DCE, we might force him into a turn or two where he can't attack, just because all of his Pokemon, or all of his attackers, are kind of reliant on double colorless. So here he used stand in, and he's actually, yeah, he actually uses Mind Jack on us, which doesn't do anything. I think he forgot there, so we will actually be able to discard this energy as well. So here we can grab N, that'll be really nice. Hopefully get ourselves an energy we can put down on Infernape. Okay, we get ourselves a Monferno, which is nice. And we can attack with Infernape this turn if we choose to. But to be honest, our opponent only has 11 cards left. I think the better play here would maybe just to Stardust and force them to overextend and into maybe Sycamore, or draw a bunch of extra cards just to stay in the game. So, I mean, we will potentially have the option of winning by prizes, but if we can make our opponent overextend, like I was saying, and deck themselves out, I am okay with that too. So, in our... Oh, dang, he does get a Lysander here. Can he get a knockout? He really needs... Okay, well, he needs like a Max Elixir and a Float Stone really right now to make anything happen. I really don't know what else he'd be able to do to get a knockout this turn otherwise. So let's see what our opponent does. He does bench that Durant. Not a card you see very often. So it looks like our opponent's taking a minute to think about what they want to do. I'm not sure what's in their hand here. And they just passed us, which I'm okay with. So now we can actually start to get a little bit aggressive here. We can probably attach this to our Infernape. And... okay, it looks like I'm thinking about retreating, actually. Huh. Okay. That's interesting. I don't know why I did that, to be honest. I think we probably should have just taken a knockout here. Well, I guess probably what it was, this Xerneas was going to knock us out on our opponent's current turn right now. So if we had knocked out the Zoroark, our only attacker would have kind of been gone, and we wouldn't have been able to Stardust those basic fairy energies. Actually, yeah, I did make the correct play there. Just rewatching this footage at first glance, I was like, what am I doing? So here he does get Floatstone, and he's going to knock out our Jirachi with Rainbow Force for a whopping 220, which I'm okay with. We have teammates in our hands, so we can just promote our Infernape and get ourselves an energy. And we actually top deck a Burning Energy, which is great. So here we're going to teammates, maybe grab ourselves another Infernape just to evolve our benched one. I really don't know what else we would need this turn. We could, I think grabbing Versus Seeker is good. That'll give us a lot of different options. So that'll give us the option to play a Draw Supporter, play Teammates again, play a Lysander. So I definitely like grabbing Versus Seeker here. So yeah, that seems okay to me. And we can just evolve that bench Monferno that we have. Attach the Burning Energy to the active, which is actually kind of nice because we don't have to discard either of these in order to use Flare Blitz anymore. And really, I don't think he plays a Pokemon over 120 hit points anyways, so there's not too much of a reason to use Infernape's second attack in this matchup. So here, I'm just looking at our opponent's resources. He is out of double colorless energy, which is great because that means it's going to take him at least 2 turns to power up another attacker. And we have Versus Seeker for a Lysander, so anything he tries to power up, we will be able to knock out. So yeah, like I said, we have a Theory going on to the Raichu, and we really do need to take that thing out because that is one of his only outs to really knocking out our Infernapes. Because if he can get this Raichu up, we might be in a little bit of trouble here. But I think we have another Fire Energy left in the deck anyways, if I remember right, so we would be able to return KO it. So here, I'm just got to think, I don't know what else our opponent can really do at this point, because we're going to take a knockout pretty much every turn for the rest of the game, as far as I can see at least. So we're going to Lysander. Like I said, we're probably going to pull up a Raichu, just because that is kind of the big threat right now. So yeah, and then we can Flare Blitz for 120. Yeah, the only other attacker he really has is Zoroark, which doesn't do much damage since we only have one bench Pokemon. Bunnelby could potentially be annoying, because Bunnelby does have the attack that can discard, I think it's like either, you can put like 1 card from your discard back in your deck, or mill the top card of your opponent's deck, and he has Omega Barrage, so he can attack twice. So he could mill 2 cards off the top of our deck there. And try to go with like a deck out type of strategy. Here we just see the knockout on Bunnelby. And yeah, I gotta say, it looks pretty inevitable at this point. We are taking the poison damage from Ariados, but again, Zoroark and I think maybe Shaman are the only things that really can do any damage to us, and it's not going to be enough to take a knockout in time, that's for sure. So we really don't know what else is left in our opponent's deck. I don't know if they played a Super Rod yet or not. But here we'll Hex Maniac, just prevent any sort of weird shenanigans we might not be expecting. Flare Blitz for the knockout. And next turn we will be able to steal the game. So Hex is nice just because if he did have like a Super Rod or something, that would prevent him from playing Super Rod, then drawing cards he needed with Octillery. So we're just trying to maximize our chances of closing out this game. And here he's going to use Chip Off and discard some cards from our hand. Not a big deal at this point. And like I said, we can just use Flare Blitz yet again to take a knockout here for a whopping 250 damage on Durant. Yeah, guys, so that is going to be our look at Infernape. Nice little budget deck for, I think, newer players. You might be able to run Shaman in this list, just because, like I said, there was an instance or two where it would have come in handy, but we only ran a few basics in this deck anyway, so I think you can get by without playing any Shamans, and it seemed pretty consistent there for the most part. So, yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. As usual, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our merch at rarecandytcg.com. Which we're actually doing a sale on right now. Until the end of the month, certain items are 10% off, so definitely check that out and see if there's something you might want to pick up to help support the channel. It would mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you guys for the next one, okay?